There are 34, on or about April the 6th of last year, there were 334,503,780 people in the U.S. And 482,295 of them in Raleigh. And all those people were going around and living their lives and doing things. And you're here today because by whatever chance, two of those people ended up having their lives intersect. And as a result of that intersection, their lives were changed forever. And one was lost. And there's not one thing that either you or me or anybody else can do about that. But your job is going to be to come in and figure out, under the law, what happened and what ought to be done about it. You're all good citizens, randomly brought in here. You don't know anything about the case, don't know anything about the people. But now you're about to learn some things. You're going to learn basically three segments. You're going to learn about before, you're going to learn about during, and you're going to learn about after the event. One of the things that you're going to learn about this man is something about his background, his history, and what he done. And you will hear from him that he was born in Gaza, in Palestine, to the extent that that country actually exists. He was born in 1963 and lived there until he was about 3 years old, and his parents took him to Kuwait, where there was more opportunity to do things. He lived in Kuwait until 1980, and then he moved to the United States of America. Pursue that dream that so many people around the world want. To come to this country where there's freedom, where there's opportunity, and where those people who are willing to work hard and do right can succeed and thrive and prosper. When he moved to the U.S., he started college at Shaw University. He attended school there until about 1982. And between 82 and 83, he was at East Carolina University studying electronics technology. In 1984-85, he obtained an associate's degree in electronics from Wake Tech. And finally, in the school year of 86-87, he was given a BS in business management and accounting from Shaw University. When he got that degree, he was attracted to go back to the Middle East to work. He moved back to Kuwait. He worked in the shipping and trading industry and was doing well. But his time in the United States of America was a strong draw to him. He was in Kuwait in 1990 when the Iraqis invaded Kuwait and lived through that. And while he was there doing that, he actually took it upon himself to help smuggle numerous American families and people out of the country for their In 1988, he moved, in 2000, he moved back to the United States of America, where he opened up some businesses. His businesses were selling things to people, operating in stores. He has been in that business ever since. From 2005 until today, he focused his attention on operating stores in downtown Raleigh. The store that he's operated is the subject of this event, or the location where it happened, is Tasieer store. It's at 207 South Bloomington Street. And he's been there for 17 years. In 17 years, he's seen businesses come and go, and more go than come. his store serves a function to the people of that area. It would otherwise be a food desert. In fact, if you were down here, I know you can't go there, but if you could, there's very few places in downtown that you can buy anything. Buy soda, buy bread, buy whatever it is you can. He's operated that store for 17 years, and in 17 years, you will hear that this incident of shoplifting or attempted larceny or more is just one of hundreds of times that he's had to interact with people. And he will tell you that in those normal interactions with people, it usually goes down like this. The law allows a merchant to confront and detain an individual to determine whether, if the owner, the merchant, or clerk, or whatever, has probable cause to believe that they're shoplifting. Shoplifting is unlawful concealment of goods while you're on the property of the merchant. In this particular case, it's Gatorade. And the way that most of those interactions go on with Taz, and in fact probably most merchants, is that when somebody is suspected of doing that, they are interdicted either by the clerk, the store owner, store security, whatever you want to call it, loss management or whatever. And it usually goes down like, I need to stop you right there, I need to look in your bag. If you got property, I need to look in your bag. You will find from the way Taz will tell you that for years and years and years, and doing that hundreds of times, the vast majority of the people are cooperative. They'll just give it up. And if it's a case where they just simply didn't have the money, Taz will tell you that a lot of times he just lets them have it and maybe tells them, don't ever steal from me again, get out of my store. If they've got the money to pay for it, a lot of times it goes down to pay for it, don't ever steal from me again, get out of the store. Most of the situations where he has to interact with people, he will tell you the cops never get involved in it at all. Because if the cops come, the cops will write somebody up, and maybe they deserve it, and maybe they don't. Maybe they'll come down to court, and maybe something will happen with it, and maybe something won't. And if he gets into the court system, then he's got to, they come down to court to testify, take time out of business, and all the rest of that. And like I said, a lot of times nothing happens here. You will hear and see from the evidence that the place where this store is not like where most of you guys live. It's different. It's right adjacent to the bus station. They're transient people. They're homeless people that are there. They're people who use drugs and drink, and they're fighting. and there's all kinds of stuff that happens down there. It's a little bit like the Wild West. But Taz does it, and he does it and provides a service to people who otherwise wouldn't have anybody to provide that service. In the store, there are a number of security cameras that are in there. They're there for the purpose of documenting what goes on and to help him deal with people who would steal from him. What they call shrinkage or inventory control. For him, it's like trying to keep somebody from stealing and blind. You're going to see the videos. There are 5 of them in the store in different areas, and a lot of that goes on is important because there is pretty good video from different directions as to this actual event, the struggle, fight, call it what you want, that resulted in the injury to Mark Garrity and caused his death. And to make it easier for you to really see that and understand it, those videos have also been cropped to cut out things that are extraneous. Have been slowed down, some of them to quarter speed, and on some of them, it can be shown to you and will be shown to you frame by frame, pieces of seconds at a time. In terms of things that happened before that, you will also find out that Taz has a fair amount of interaction with law enforcement. They're coming in his store all the time because there's a pretty good police presence down in that area. In this particular case, even though there were efforts to call, and the woman who was doing the cell phone video, when Taz yelled out, "Call the police," yelled back, "They've already been called." In fact, some people are going to come in and testify about what kind of a man he is, and how he conducts his life, and how he does his business. And at least a couple of those are going to be police officers. You know him well, been in and out of the store and dealt with him for years. Because Taz has a history of cooperating with law enforcement. Has many times given them access to the security camera footage when they're looking for suspects or individuals. Now, I don't know a lot about Mark Garrity other than the fact that he's a young man and he died in a bad way, and it didn't have to happen. We do know, and I believe the evidence is going to show, that he did have an addiction to various controlled substances as well. Some of his medical records are available, and they will show that. The records will also show one of the things that is going to be an issue that you're going to have to sort out is, well, why did this go down the way it went down? Okay. Because in essence, what happened was, on the store video that was available to Taz, he saw Mark Garrity take some of his product. It was a drink. The first one that's clearly on video is a Powerade. And he takes it and he looks at it. He has it in his hand. He has the bag in his hand. He unzips the top of his bag, and just before he's about to put it in the bag, looks up and notices that there's a can. He puts it down, goes back around behind where there is shelf with merchandise. He's then opening up and closing various doors where the sport drinks, including Gatorade, is found. He messes around there where you can't see him, and then when he comes out of that room and comes back into the other room, on video that's available to Taz, he doesn't have any drink in his hand. Where's the drink at? Taz, at that point, being a merchant, is authorized by the law to detain him, to stop him, to ascertain whether or not he is in fact stealing. Because his detention cannot last longer than the time that it takes either for the police to get there or to ascertain that the person is not stealing. In this particular case, the only way to ascertain whether or not Mark Garrity was stealing from him was to access the bag and see what was in it. You're going to find out from the police, and in fact, Mr. Latour acknowledged that what they found in there was some blue Gatorade. Importantly, that blue Gatorade was cold. It didn't come in from someplace else. It came out of the cooler, and it went into Mark Garrity's bag. And he had zero intention of paying for it. And Taz was authorized under the law to seek to find out if that was true. And he went up to Mark Garrity, and you'll see this on the video, and grabbed the bag and said, I need to look in your bag. What's in your bag? Most of the people that Taz has dealt with in those similar circumstances comply. They say, I'm sorry, man, or yeah, go ahead and look. Maybe you're wrong about it. I got no problem. Look at my bag. But Mark Garrity absolutely and positively refuses to allow Taz to do that. You're also going to hear from Taz about the fact that he had a knife with him and that he actually had it out. While the testimony is going to be while at the counter watching the store video and seeing the things that gave him good reason to believe that Mr. Garrity was stealing stuff from him. There were 4 women that were in front of the counter, and they were aware of what was going on because Taz was also brought Mr. Nathan Cowles, I guess, or Cole, we'll find out when he comes in, who was the store clerk who was doing something else, and brought him up so that he could take over the register. While he's ringing up stuff, he points to the monitor so that Mr. Cowles can look and see what the person is doing. While they're discussing this, there are, again, 4 women that are there. And when Taz says, Mr. Garrity starts coming and Taz goes around, one of the women says to him, be careful, Taz, he may be carrying. Which Taz understood to be that he may have a weapon. So when Taz went up and grabbed the bag to try to determine whether he was stealing them from him or not, he asked Mark Garrity if he was carrying it, if he had a gun or a pistol in the bag. And Mark Garrity replied to him, I got a pistol in there, if I open my bag, I'll shove it up your ass. Which caused 2 things to happen. Taz will tell you that he immediately got even more concerned than he was, and he knew from that moment the one thing that he absolutely positively had to do was not let go of the bag. And they fought over that bag. They fought over that bag. They came together. And for about a minute and a half, they were struggling over that bag. And then, as Mr. Latour told you, Mark Garrity had had enough. He was going to break out. He was going to go. And he forcefully pushed Taz, had him turned around backwards, was pushing on the back of his shirt and his neck. Taz turned around, and as that happened, they came together up against part of the counter. And the video, we would say, depicts where he got injured the first time as a result of them coming together. Taz was at that time, and earlier, you will see that he had his knife, and he was not attempting to harm Mark Garrity with it. The only thing that he was doing was trying to cut the straps of the bag so that he could literally cut the bag away from him. As a matter of fact, in the course of it, there's evidence that shows that Taz got cuts on his hands because of what he was doing. But when Taz finally was able to cut that bag away and pull it loose, instead of just running out the store, Mark Garrity came and charged him as Taz was bending over and hit him forcefully in the head. And at that time, Taz, you will see, just tried to get him off him. And in the course of that, there's like 3 seconds. This entire thing happened between 3:40:03 in the afternoon and 3:40:06. You will see really the moment where Mark Garrity, the knife struck him in the chest, and it tragically went between 2 ribs and hit him in the heart. At that point, he does back up, holds his chest, and turns to go. And Taz just comes and looks at him to make sure of what he's doing. And then at that point, instead of running out the store, Mark stops and comes running up and does a karate kick and tries to kick Taz in the face. Falls flat on his back. Then realizes, I guess, that it's over and he needs to go, and he runs out to the street and collapses. Now, that big question is going to be, why did this go down so different from all the other regular, piddly shoplifting cases where somebody may just get a slap on the wrist with it? What was going on in Mark Garrity's head at that time that caused him to fight so hard for so long? The two things you're going to find out, and this is kind of before, one of them is before and after, and the other is after. You're going to receive evidence that 1 week to the day before this happened, Mark Garrity was in this very courthouse, and he pled guilty to felony breaking and entering and larceny, and was given a suspended sentence, and he had a sentence of 5 to 15 months hanging over his head. He was put on probation, and probation has terms. And among those terms, and the most important of those terms is, do not commit any other criminal offense in this or any other jurisdiction. Shoplifting is a crime. Stealing is a crime. So for Mark Garrity, it was not going to be a slap on the wrist. It was not going to be something that would come down to this courthouse and then just get overlooked. For him, it meant prison, because it was a clear violation of his probation. You will also hear from the testimony of the pathologist that at the time that he died, they routinely, in the medical examiner's office, they draw blood and they check for alcohol and drugs. And in this particular situation, when they did that checking, they found he had cocaine and fentanyl in his system. So when you're trying to figure out why this thing went down, you will have evidence that this was going to be of major effect to him, and he also had the mental effects, whatever you determine them to be, of having cocaine and fentanyl in his system. The store videos will begin, and there is a total of about let's see, 15:35, and out the door at, there's basically a minute and a half. This whole thing happened. We do know, and you will find out, that the cops were called, but unfortunately, sometimes when seconds count, the cops can't get there for a few minutes. In the after, you will see, tragically, Mark Garrity lying in the street, and for practical purposes, dying. He received heroic treatment at Wake Med. The EMS people were able to get some pulse. He was delivered there. They opened up his chest. They did manual cardiac massage. They did everything that modern medicine will allow them to do, but it was not. By virtue of exactly where that injury was, it was not possible to save. Mr. Latour indicates that Taz stayed in the store, and he did. There were still customers in the store. There were still people coming in and out, and there was blood on the floor. And he didn't want people stepping in blood. I mean, people were really concerned about that kind of thing. He cleaned up and tried to make it more safe for people. When the officers came in, he was very forthcoming to them. He said, "Listen, man, it's on video. You can go in." He had no problems. Gave them the video. Gave them his knife. Showed them where he had apparently injured himself. He talked to several police officers there, told them what happened, did everything that he could do to be cooperative. One of the officers was there, had the opportunity to pick the bag up that Mark had, open it up, and yes, indeed, there was a bottle of Gatorade, and yes, indeed, it was cold. Taz is asked to go downtown and give a statement. Told he's not charged with anything. He goes down and voluntarily does, and sits and gives him a statement, waives his rights to remain silent. And Detective Heflin had him down there for, I guess, from that after, shortly after this happened until late in the evening. They took his clothes, or at least his shirt, and took photographs of him. And at the end of that interview, Detective Heflin said, "You're free." And Taz was free, didn't go anywhere, didn't run away, didn't try to hide. No charges were filed against Taz until April the 19th, almost 2 weeks later. Now, he is charged with second-degree murder. And again, I mentioned to you that by virtue of his being a merchant, he is authorized under the law. It's not just like some kind of general principle or something. But the law says a merchant or merchant's agent or employee who detains or causes the arrest of any person.
Objection.
Sustained.
What law you will be required to use in this case is going to be given to you directly from Judge Drake. I'm certainly not trying to tell you something that I don't believe to be true, but he's going to be the one to determine whether or not that law is applicable in this particular case. We would submit that the evidence is going to show that Taz did not act with malice. He didn't want anybody to be hurt. He was trying to do all he could. You will see video that shows him holding the knife way back to try to keep it out of the way while they're struggling. And it wasn't until it became apparent that he needed to cut the straps loose that the knife even came close to Mr. Garrity. And you will also see in the video that what is happening is that Mr. Garrity is trying to pull that bag away and is pulling Taz with him. Taz will testify that he never wanted to hurt anyone. He certainly never intended to kill anyone. To begin with, all he wanted to do was to get the bag, especially when he thought that there might be a gun in it. And Mark Garrity wouldn't give it up. The evidence is going to be that Mr. Cowles came down and he joined into it, and they were in there, and it's not that he was trying to break it up or whatever. He was also telling Mark Garrity, give up the bag. Drop the bag. But Mark simply would not. And there's also a fundamental difference between just shoplifting something and trying to take somebody else's property. We would submit that when Taz did what he did what he had to do. When Mark Garrity at the end was charging him, and when Mark Garrity was fatally wounded, he was attacking Taz. Taz was in a defensive position, head down, being struck in the head. You will also find out that from the evidence that Mark Garrity is less than half this man's age. You will also hear that before he went to work late that day, Taz was having cancer treatment and was receiving intravenous bladder treatment for bladder cancer, where he had to go to the doctor's office and be catheterized and infused with chemicals to kill the cancer. And that has effects. Bear in mind, when you are receiving all of this evidence, that is the state of North Carolina and not Tass who has the burden of proof. Not only would the state have the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt that Tass did something unlawful, illegal, they will also have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that when he did what he did, he was not acting in self-defense. And again, Tass has no obligation to prove his innocence. As you were informed in jury selection, some of this evidence may be heartbreaking and difficult to see. I suspect everybody would give anything they had not to be here, not to have to go through, not to have to see what will be stated, and not to have to make the decisions that need to be made. But as all of you have indicated, that you understand that it is your civic duty to do this difficult thing and to render a valuable service to the community. We believe the evidence will show that Tass was where he was supposed to be, doing what he was supposed to be doing. He was not looking for trouble, but trouble came and found him, and Mark Garrett came in to steal. After you've carefully considered all of the evidence and listened to the law that's been instructed to you by Judge Gregory, we will ask that you then return a verdict of not guilty.